Okay, so today we are picking up with our unit on community. And today we're going to, community and citizenship, I guess I should say. And today we're going to pick up with citizenship and the family and all that entails. So, looking at the changing family in American history, the colonial family, the first families of America, were very rural, and they were very large compared to families of today. Children were considered to be an economic asset that you wanted to have as many children as possible to help you work on the farm. The boys would help out with the chores and the planting and the harvest and the animals and the repairs around the farm, all kinds of stuff, while the girls were busy cooking and sewing and canning and preserving meat and gardening and all kinds of stuff. It was a very different time and a very difficult time in our history because there's not a whole lot of time for these children to go to school or to play. If they did go to school, a lot of them went to a one-room schoolhouse, but the vast majority of them are going to learn what they learn at home. Some basic reading and writing and math skills, but nothing too far advanced. But the colonial family was your basic work unit. The family produced most of what it needed for itself. It didn't have to go out and buy additional things unless they really wanted to, or if they had the money. Kids, when they got married, would bring their spouses back to their parents' home, and they would live in the same house with their parents, and they would live there and continue to help on the family farm, and then their children, their grandchildren, the parents would take a less active role in the farming and instead spend time teaching the younger generation. So as the grandchildren were coming up, they were teaching them the same skills that they had taught, the moms and dads and all kinds of stuff. So that is how the family typically worked in the colonial family. However, that is going to change. Eventually, we will see more of a population move to the cities. During the 1800s, 7 out of 10 Americans lived in rural areas, so 70%. But today, it's only about 1 in every 4, so about 25%. It's actually even a little less than that, live in rural areas. Vast majority of our population live in cities or a city setting. And that change happens because of technology and because of science and changes in transportation. We have factories and inventions, and more jobs are in the cities. We actually need fewer people on the farms because we have machinery to help out with the farming now. We don't necessarily need to have just a ton of people. So we do see a large change happening in the American family because of that. So the changing American family, there are a number of trends that are emerging in recent years regarding families. The first is called delayed marriage. And delayed marriage just means that people are getting married at older ages. They're not getting married right out of high school or even right out of college anymore. They're waiting until their mid to late 20s, sometimes even into their 30s to get married. And there's multiple reasons for this. There is a growing acceptance of singlehood, that there's no pressure by society to get married. A lot of people feel that they should finish their education first and get a good job. And there's really no stigma anymore of people living together without being married. With delayed marriage, people are also putting off having children. And again, the reason for that is they would like to be established in their careers before they begin to have more mouths to feed. Another trend, or the second trend that we see happening in families, is that it's a two-earner family. And that's where you have families with both of the parents working. And the reasons that we have two-earner families anymore today is that there's a large number of married women that are working outside the home, basically because it's an economic necessity. Plus, it's more acceptable now for women to actually be working rather than raising the kids. So that has become more acceptable as well. The third trend is the increase in one-parent families. And one-parent families can be formed a lot of different ways. You can have divorce, it could be widowhood, it could be adoption by unmarried people, it could be births to unmarried women, all kinds of stuff. But the problem with one-parent families is that there is a greater likelihood of added stress on that parent and the greater likelihood of poverty because you don't have that second earner to help with the bills and all that kind of stuff, and to balance out the stressful times of raising children. The fourth major trend is remarriage, and remarriage is where one or both of the partners have been married before, and when either one of them bring in children from a previous marriage, that's called a blended marriage. So a remarriage is just where you've been married before. A blended marriage is where you're bringing in children from a previous marriage. So, talking a lot about marriages. The law and the family. Part of family law is marriage laws, and family law regulates marriage and divorce. It also regulates the duties of parents and children in the family, of what the expectation is legally. Most states require people to be at least 18 in order to marry without parental consent, and about half of the states require a waiting period before you get your license, before you get married, of 1 to 5 days. And the reason for this is to discourage hasty marriages, because if you just decide, oh, I want to marry you, somebody I just met, and marry you in the next hour, then, tomorrow morning I may decide I don't like you anymore and we're going to go get a divorce. So they want to prevent that from happening. Most states also require a blood test in order to show that you are in good health, basically so you don't pass along any diseases to your partner without them being aware of it. In Iowa, there is no blood test requirement, but still, it'd be a nice thing that you don't pass a disease along to your partner without telling them that, hey, I've got this. So just a FYI, be a nice person. Protecting family members is also part of family law. That includes things like child abuse. And child abuse can be mental abuse, physical abuse, or sexual abuse. And if you are committed, or if you are convicted of child abuse, your child could be taken away from the parents. And if they're taken from the parents, they're usually placed in a foster home. And a foster home is the home of people who are unrelated to the child, but who agree to act as their guardians or as their parents. And the state pays these foster parents for their care. A lot of kids that end up in foster homes are orphans, and the state can appoint a guardian to an orphan or a foster home. And a guardian is a person who is appointed by the state to care for this individual who is not an adult, or who is unable to care for themselves for some reason. Maybe they're just not old enough, or maybe they're old enough, maybe they're 18 or older, but they lack the mental capacity to take care of themselves. So these guardians do have options to adopt the people that they're guarding. And adoption is just the legal establishment of this child as your own. Family law also includes divorce laws, and divorce is the final and legal ending of a marriage. And there's lots of different grounds for divorce. If your partner deserts you, or if they are mentally or physically abusing you, if they got a felony conviction, or they're addicted to drugs, or they committed adultery, and there's all kinds of things that you can claim in order to get a divorce. But probably becoming more popular today are something called a no-fault divorce. And no-fault divorces means that you do not have to charge your partner with grounds for a divorce. You just need to state that there are problems that can't be resolved, that it's nobody's fault that this divorce is happening, they didn't do something wrong. Instead, you just can't get along, but there's nothing like illegal about why you can't get along. You just can't get along and you don't want to be married to each other anymore. So that's a no-fault divorce. Those have been increasing, as well as just divorce in general in the U.S. The reason for the increase in divorces in the U.S. is that the process today is a lot less complicated than it used to be. It used to be a much more long and drawn-out process. It also used to cost a lot more back in the 50s and early 40s. The cost is lower today. Even if you end up paying child support and stuff, it still is a lot less expensive. Society today is much more accepting of divorce than it used to be even 30, 40 years ago. Much more tolerant of divorce. And women who have been gaining their independence financially are less likely to stay in an unhappy marriage than they were, 40 or 50 years ago. So, what does this all mean to you? Well, you and your family. Your family serves the nation. They may not even realize it, but they do. There's 5 things that families do that help to prepare you as a person, as a citizen, for being a part of this country. The first is that they are ensuring the nation's future. That families help to shape the nation's future by providing a home for children that is secure and happy. And if it's not secure and happy, you get taken away to one that is. The second is that it educates its members. So you learn from your family. You learn how to get along, especially if you have siblings. You learn how to get along, and you learn how to share in the chores and all that stuff. The third is that it teaches good behavior. Your very earliest ideas of right and wrong come from your family. The fourth is that it helps to manage your money. You learn how to manage money. You learn how to save. You learn how to share financial responsibilities, especially if you get like an allowance or anything like that. You got to learn how to manage money, how to save when you need to. And the fifth is that it teaches you good citizenship, that you learn to respect the rights of others and to understand your responsibility as a citizen and what the expectations are of you. So all of those things come from your family.